Hello and welcome to Cleveland Classic Cinema. Tonight's movie is 1950's Destination Moon, directed by Irving Peikel.
It is just 1 minute before takeoff time in the uninhabited desert of White Sands, New Mexico.
Tell them to stand by for count-off and firing.
59, 58, 57.
But 56. To reach this dramatic moment were months of construction, checking every detail 1,000 times, and a desperate struggle to convince the skeptical, to outwit those who would stop us, to muster up courage to challenge the black, airless void of terror-stricken space.
Come back to me, Charles. Please, come back.
17, 16, 15.
All right, take it away!
13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, fire!
We're stuck here. Who got me here? I didn't want to come.
You can blame me, Joe.
I could have blown my brains out, or gone over Niagara Falls in a barrel, or found some other decent way to die.
The picture you've been reading about in every important national magazine and newspaper. Among them, Life. This week, the New York Times, Popular Science, Seeing Stars, Popular Mechanics, Parade, the New York Daily News.
The 1950s was pretty much the golden age of science fiction films, and this movie kicked it off. According to the excellent book Keep Watching the Skies by Bill Warren, the first movie to treat space travel as a practical reality was Fritz Lang's 1930 film Frau Unmund. After this film, space travel was simply a part of a number of serials such as the Flash Gordon series. To quote, Destination Moon approached the subject with vividness and believability and permanently changed the average moviegoer's mind about space travel, unquote. Well, that's quite a claim to make, but it's true. The script for the film was co-authored by Robert Heinlein, a writer called the Dean of Science Fiction. He was also the film's technical advisor and insisted on scientific accuracy in the movie. Oddly, it also included an error that was repeated in just about every science fiction film of the 1950s concerning spaceflight: the distortion of the facial features of the men on board the ship as it reaches escape velocity from the gravitational pull of the Earth. This doesn't happen in real life, although that wasn't known at the time. This film also marked the first foray into science fiction for its producer, George Pal. Born in Cegléd, Hungary in 1908, he studied architecture and after graduation wasn't able to find work in his chosen field. To survive, he took a job designing subtitles for movies, and from there became interested in cartoon animation. In 1931, he moved to Berlin and landed a job with UFA Studios. In 1932, he started his own studio and moved into three-dimensional animation of physical objects for commercials. As the Nazi Party came to power, Pal moved to Prague in 1933 and then moved to Paris, where he produced animated commercials for Philips Radio of Holland. They were very successful, and he later moved to the Netherlands, where he began making puppet animation shorts shown in theaters. In 1939, he came to the United States to lecture at Columbia University, and while there, was approached by a rep for Paramount Pictures. Pal ended up moving to Hollywood, where he began his Puppetoon series, employing a young animator by the name of Ray Harryhausen. The series ended in 1947, and Pal went on to produce motion pictures, the first of which was The Great Rupert, which if you watch this show during Christmas time, you've seen. His next film was tonight's feature. Pal was a great fan of science fiction and fantasy, and this love is reflected in the movies he produced. Unfortunately, he never really got the financing his movies deserved. I remember seeing many of his movies at the old Riverside Theater on Lorraine: War of the Worlds, The Time Machine, The Seven Faces of Dr. Lao, and I loved them all. Although when I see them now, some of the effects are less than convincing, I still enjoy watching them today. I'd love to get more of him for the show, in particular Dr. Lau, but times being what they are, Dr. Lau is looked down upon by the PC crowd because of Tony Randall's performance as the title character. They overlooked the fact that it was intended as a fairy tale, a picture for children, and Randall, who is an excellent actor, played it that way. While it's understandably seen as a stereotypical performance, the message of the picture, in my opinion anyway, supersedes the objections of the idiots who take offense at it. George Pell was a gentleman and saw the world through innocent eyes. Unfortunately, he was often forced to bow to commercial concerns to the detriment of his films, but he left a great legacy. He died on May 2nd, 1980 in Los Angeles, California. The plot of this movie is as follows. After their latest attempt to launch a rocket fails, retired General Thayer contacts aviation mogul Jim Barnes to construct a rocket that will make it to the moon and back. Barnes dismisses the idea at first, but when Thayer mentions that the last attempt may have been sabotaged, and then hints that whoever controls the high ground of space would control the world, at least in a nuclear weapon sense. That gets Barnes' patriotic ire up, and they immediately begin the planning stages for the rocket. To get the necessary funding, they prepare a presentation for potential investors using a short film to explain the process of rocket science starring Woody Woodpecker. I thought this was a little questionable until I saw the cartoon and found it was quite clear in explaining everything in an admittedly simplistic but entertaining manner. They get the funding needed to build the rocket, go to the moon, run into a few problems, and... John Archer was born Ralph Bowman on May 8, 1915 in Osceola, Nebraska. He and his family moved to LA when he was 5, where he attended Hollywood High and USC. He originally aimed for a job behind the camera, taking cinematography courses in college before moving into acting. He did some acting in theater and appeared in a good number of Poverty Row films and serials, eventually winning a radio contest and winning a contract with RKO, at which point his name was changed to John Archer. He appeared in over 100 movies and television shows in his career and also did a fair amount of radio. In the 40s, having the most success as the voice of the Shadow. He was intelligent enough to hedge his bets by starting a trucking company, which gave him a living once the acting work dried up. A side note, his daughter is actress Ann Archer. John Archer died of lung cancer on December 3rd, 1999 in Redmond, Washington. Warner Anderson was born on March 10th, 1911 in Brooklyn, New York. He started acting as a child in silent films and moved into vaudeville and burlesque as a teenager before making his film debut in the early 40s. His first credited role in a sound film was in 1943's Destination Tokyo, and he specialized in playing judges, military brass, and other authority figures, moving back and forth from film to television in the 50s. He's best remembered for narrating the TV show Peyton Place. He died on August 26, 1976 in Santa Monica, California. Dick Wesson was born Richard Earl Wessell on November 19, 1922 in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Entering show business in a comedy act with his older brother Gene, he toured the nightclub circuit for a number of years before he made his film debut in tonight's movie. He specialized in playing comic relief in 31 movies and television shows, in addition to producing, writing, and directing many episodes of TV shows. Dick Wesson died on April 25, 1966 in Rancho Mirage, California. Destination Moon is an interesting movie, if not a great one. The making of the film was covered in numerous picture magazines of the day, including Life and Pick, which could be a double-edged sword. It tipped off another filmmaker, in this case Robert Lippert, that a major space movie was in the offing, and Lippert beat this movie to the theaters with his offering, Rocket Ship XM. Oddly for Lippert, Rocket Ship XM wasn't that bad a film, although I find riding on the coattails of the publicity for another film a bit reprehensible. But then again, that's how things are done in Hollywood. So right now, sit back, relax, and enjoy Destination Moon, right here on Cleveland Classic Cinema.